It's Fan Fiction Friday. Let's take a look at your mock trades here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Friday, June 14th, 2024. This is Heidi Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Fan Fiction Friday, the show where you submit your Mariners trade proposals and Colby and I react to them. Before we get into this week's batch, shout out to our title sponsor today, Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB, that's LOCKEDONMLB, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, check out our Patreon. The link is in the description, and you can sign up for a free 7-day trial. All right, let's get into your trades. We're going to start here with Matthew, who has a deal with the Oakland Athletics. The Mariners send Harry Ford, Michael Arroyo, Michael Morales, and Caleb Cali to the A's for Brent Rooker and Austin Adams.
I think this is about what it would cost. You know, one blue chip prospect, one like really good prospect, then a couple lottery tickets to kind of account for the the Austin Adams part of the deal. So yeah, I mean, like Rooker, I think has 3 years of club control after this year. He's not even arbitration eligible until this winter.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you're paying a little bit for the club control. You're paying obviously for what's been a career year for him so far, but this isn't a guy who's done it once. He was pretty darn good last year. We know he's a guy who actually likes to hit at T-Mobile Park. That's, kind of rare for a guy to publicly say that he likes to hit at your ballpark. So, I do think he's very familiar with the division and the ballpark and all that stuff too. So I do think this is about what it would cost. Would the Mariners, kind of reject this because Rooker's a DH only? Maybe they might be how they see him. But again, they're running with Mitch Haniger right now in right field. So it's not like you can get much worse defensively than what you're running out there on a pretty consistent basis. And again, he can also play first. He could play some DH. He could play left. He could play some right. So there are ways to get him in the lineup and keep everybody else in the lineup an appropriate amount. We've had this discussion a lot. You can move a lot of guys around and give them one day off a week and still give everybody plenty of at-bats. So Rooker definitely falls into that. Adams obviously would help your bullpen. So, I think this is about what it cost. I don't know if the Mariners would do this deal, but I think they should consider something like this because Rooker's a pretty darn good player, pretty darn good hitter at least, and you really need some bullpen help right now.
Yeah, I think the Mariners would prefer to give up a package like this for someone that has, some value in other areas of the game outside of their bat. But I mean, there aren't many hitters this year that are hitting better than Rooker, and you need offense ultimately. You need production at the plate. 55?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Next trade here from Steven. It's Luis Severino and Harrison Bader from the New York Mets for Aiden Smith, Jonathan Clase, and Reed Van Scoter. The Mets also eat the remaining cash on Severino and Bader.
It's an interesting idea. It's outside the box, certainly, which is nice. It's nice to see some different names get thrown into these Fan Fiction Fridays. We tend to talk about the same player over and over again, but there are some concerns here. Severino, for example, only signed to a 1-year deal, so you're only going to get him for a couple of months.
He's having a really good year, though.
He is, but you're only going to get him for a couple months, and right now he's kind of a luxury because I'm not sure if he's better than Brian Wu, but he is certainly more dependable than Brian Wu.
And he's better than Emerson Hancock and Jonathan Diaz.
Right. But again, like, do you want to pay Aiden Smith, who's a really good prospect, for that guy when he may or may not be required to make 10 starts? And by the way, how many starts is he going to make for you in the playoffs? He might be better than Bryce Miller by the end of the year, but I don't know. I don't know if that's worth Aiden Smith. And then the problem with Bader is that he's always been a glove first guy. He's had a few
base
seasons,
running its defense over bat.
Right. He's had a few seasons where he's had a pretty good year with the bat, and I know he's having a pretty good year with the bat this year, but again, that's also a rental. So it's 2 rentals, one of whom doesn't really help you offensively, or there's a huge threat that he doesn't help you offensively. And the other one, as of right now, is kind of a luxury item for you when you have other more important needs that you need to fill. So I think that I think that the Mets would probably like something like this. They get a couple of rentals, they package them together, and they trade them off for a really high upside prospect that they can develop. So I think from a Mets standpoint, this is probably what they're looking for. They could package these guys together. They can get an Aiden Smith, they could get a Ty Pete, or prospects similar to that from other teams. And there are certainly going to be teams who want Severino because he's probably going to be one of the best pitchers available at the deadline this year. But the Mariners aren't one of those teams right now that needs, a starting pitcher. They don't need to add a starting pitcher. We'll see. This could change in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. If Brian Wu continues this kind of random, not feeling great, we have to skip a start type of thing. But
I think considering how many times this has cropped up for him, the arm fatigue, essentially, I think you have to. I think you have to. At this point now, like, you have to assume that you're going to have to add a starter of some kind. And maybe it's a guy that can also go into the bullpen.
Right. But are you going to add one that is going to cost you Aiden Smith and is only going to be around for 2 months?
I'm out on that.
Yeah.
So, I'll give you some bonus points here for the creativity for talking about two guys that we typically don't get asked about. I'll go like 45 to a 50 on this.
Yeah, I think so. That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go over some more of your trades in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Here on Locked On Mariners, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000. That's 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. See the link in this episode description. Before we get back into the show, I want to tell you about an upcoming event this Sunday at T-Mobile Park to support a great cause. The Washington State Coalition Against Domestic Violence is partnering with the Mariners for the 28th year to host a Refuse to Abuse Game Day, raising awareness around efforts to prevent domestic violence and promote healthy, respectful relationships. Purchase a ticket to join 1,000 Mariners fans in the Special Reserve Game Day section this Sunday against the Rangers. Tickets cost $35, with $18 of that going to the Washington State Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And not only do you get to watch the game, you also get a Mariners themed Refuse to Abuse dry fit t-shirt. For more information and the link to purchase your tickets on the Mariners website, please check out the description of this episode. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. You can catch the M's and the Rangers tonight and over the course of the weekend on the Mariners hometown broadcast, Sirius XM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners. And if you're going to be watching on TV, this is another one of those weekends where tonight's game is on Apple TV. Tomorrow's game is on Fox Sports, I believe. I don't know if it's FS1 or just regular Fox. Who knows? I watch all the games on MLB TV anyway. And then Sunday, the game will be on Root. So 3 different channels for 3 games. Well,
good job, MLB.
Apple TV isn't even a channel. It's just a streaming service, but you get the point.
Good job at MLB.
Yeah. All right. Quinn has a trade here with the Reds. Jake Fraley. Old Take Fraley, former Mariner, for Alberto Rodriguez, Walter Ford, and Luis Suispel.
Yeah, the problem with this trade is that this is all just junk for like a quality major leaguer. So the Reds aren't going to do it. There's no reason for the Reds to take that. Suispel's a fine prospect, but Ford has not progressed at all. He's actually regressed from the time the Mariners drafted him. So you're just not going to get, Jake Fraley, who's, even if he is just like a really good fourth outfielder, which is pretty much what he is. You don't want him hitting against lefties, although he's been fine this year against lefties. In general, you don't want him to hit against lefties. You don't want him playing center field, although he can handle it if you have to. So yeah, there's not a ton of power, but there's some decent pop. He steals some bags,
Yep.
but he's not a fantastic base runner. You guys remember the series against Cincinnati earlier this year? Yeesh. So yeah, like Fraley is not like this otherworldly player that is going to cost you a top, 10 prospect type of guy, but you're not going to get him for, no disrespect to these guys, but you're not going to get him for your leftovers. You're not going to get him for, your desk clutter. Like you're going to have to give up something of significance for him.
I think this is a situation where it's like, here's 5 years of Dom Canzone, or 6. How many years does he have left?
6.
6. Here's 6 years of Dom Canzone for 2 years of Jake Fraley.
Right. 2.5 years.
Yeah, 2.5. Yeah.
Right. And Fraley's, making some money. He's into arbitration now. So it might only be a year and a half, because there's certainly a chance that you get into the final year of his arbitration and he's set to make $8-9 million. And you're like, do we want to pay a fourth outfielder $9 million?
Yeah.
No.
It's just right now, while the Reds and, basically the rest of the National League are straddling the 500 fence at the moment. Like, you're going to have to give them something that's at least within proximity of the major leagues, within proximity of doing something for them in 2024.
Right. And the Reds are a team that is always, very cautious about their payroll. So it says, hey, this is a guy you might DFA either next winter or non-tender next winter, or maybe the winter after. Here's a guy that isn't even arbitration eligible for another 3 years. And you get the immediate upgrade now, and they get to hope and dream on Canzone, and they can put Canzone right into their lineup and kind of, possibly replace some of the production from Fraley, because Canzone's bat certainly has a higher ceiling than Jake Fraley.
Yeah.
But Fraley's just the more well-rounded player with a much higher floor, and you could use some high floor in this lineup right now.
Right. It's a relatively low K rate. He takes his walks, so his walk rate is down this year, but overall he takes his walks. It's you're trading essentially, like, if it's just like, let's say it's a 1-for-1 where you're trading Canzone for Fraley. You're trading the power upside of Canzone for more on base, higher average.
At least for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
So yeah, this one I'd give like a 30. It's not enough.
Yeah, I'll go 30, 35. Laser has a trade here. It's a big one. Luis Robert and Michael Kopech for Harry Ford, Johnny Farmello, Ty Pete, Jonathan Clase. This is probably what it's going to take, or fairly close to it. 3 top 10 guys from the Mariners to try and convince the White Sox to let go of Robert. And you also get Kopech in the deal. But would you do this? That's kind of the ultimate question.
Robert is such a huge risk. So it
looked pretty good in the series.
Sure, he also had to miss a game because at 26 years old, his bones are so brittle he can't play 4 games in a row. So, there are some concerns here, and he also strikes out a ton. He doesn't walk a ton, and one of his best assets, center field defense, doesn't really apply to you. Now, I mean, it's not like you're not in, instead of center field defense, you're not getting elite corner outfield defense. You're certainly getting that, and right field is, I guess left field is technically a little bit bigger than right field at T-Mobile, but. Yeah, so like it's not like you don't get any defense from Robert. You just don't get the best defense you can get from him because he's not, or the most valuable, I should say. So there's a lot of concerns here with Robert. I think at the end of the day, if they did a deal like this, I would understand it. I think it's a fairly appropriate risk to take because this is, again, it's Ford. It's not Emerson. I would prefer to give up Laz Montez to Farmello, but I can see why the White Sox wouldn't want that. I'd probably prefer to give up Cole Young to Johnny Farmello right now, but I can see why the Mariners might not like to do that because they want a couple of these guys who are close to the big leagues to stay in the org, because unfortunately they have to care about, overperforming major leaguers who are underpaid. They have to care about those type of players, unfortunately. So, I think this probably gets a conversation going. Again, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So who knows if they even like Harry Ford or not. But I think this puts you in the ballpark of what it's going to take to get the White Sox interest. But there's a lot of speculation about what Robert is going to cost. Some people say like, oh, he's going to cost more than Juan Soto. No, he's not. But then I've seen some people treat it like, oh yeah, you just have to give one like good prospect and then like some filler and it's like, nope, probably not. So I think this splits the difference pretty well. So yeah, I think
it just depends on how serious the White Sox are about moving on from him. Because yeah, they might ask for something more than Soto, and at that point, they're probably not trading Luis Robert this summer, unless like the Orioles get really desperate, which maybe they will.
Maybe, but the problem with keeping Robert right now is if you keep him for the rest of the summer, you say, oh, we could trade him this winter. What if he gets hurt again? His value just continues to go down. So they have to play this one smart, but it's very risky for the Mariners or anybody to kind of I don't want to say you're not mortgaging the farm. There's still plenty left on the farm, even if you make this trade. But it's a hefty price to pay for a guy who is more likely than not going to play 100 games. Like he's probably going to miss 70 games minimum every year. Like that's just kind of how you have to look at him because he's done it every year of his career except for once. So it's a little tough to say right now, but I would say this is
a 50.
Probably a 50. Yeah.
By the way, so as I'm sure most of you have seen, the Astros released Jose Abreu today. Colby, did you see who they called up to take his spot?
No, but since you're asking, I'm going to assume it's like a Mariner.
It's a former Mariner. Yep.
How recently?
As of last year, he made the opening day roster.
Cooper Hummel.
It's Cooper Hummel. Cooper Hummel is now on the Astros 26-man roster, which
it was either Cooper Hummel or it was Tommy La Stella, and I think we would have talked about Tommy La Stella if he was still playing baseball.
Yeah. But I feel like that also is a great indication of how things are going right now for the Houston Astros at the moment.
They're adamant they're going to buy this summer.
See about that. All right.
What? I don't know.
We'll find out, I guess.
Good luck to you.
So we are going to go over more of your trades in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you once again by Game Time. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, and I get to see the view of every seat in the house, so I know exactly what I'm buying. Game Time's last-minute deals give you up to 60% in savings buying last minute for sports, music, comedy, and more. And to avoid any surprises at checkout, you can turn on their all-in pricing to see the full costs, fees included. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Once again, you can catch the M's and the Rangers tonight and over the course of the weekend on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners. Let's get into your final trades here on Fan Fiction Friday. Daisy and the Dingo has a deal with the Mets. It's our second deal with the Mets of the day. This time it's Pete Alonso and Starling Marte to the Mariners for Ty France, Mitch Garver, Dom Canzone, and Michael Arroyo. So a lot of contract swapping here, a lot of money essentially changing hands here between these two teams. And for the Mets troubles, they get Canzone and they get Arroyo. What do you think?
I don't love it. This feels like a trade that is specifically created just to clear payroll space as opposed to actually getting the best you can for your trade package, which I understand at some point they're going to have to do something like that. Like obviously payroll, unfortunately, has to be in the conversations. But
are they actually clearing payroll? How much is Marte owed?
Marte, I think, is making about as much as Garver, so that would be a wash.
No, he's making more. He's making significantly more. He's making 19.5 this year, which is obviously going to be prorated by the deadline, and then 19.5 next year, and that's guaranteed. That's not an option. That is just a fully guaranteed year.
Right. And he's been terrible. So
and then I wouldn't say that. He's
Oh,
running a 125 WRC plus right now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
But so here's the deal with Alonso too, right? Is that
Uh-huh.
he's running, what is Alonso's WRC plus right now? Because I know it's not astronomical. I know he's having a good year, but I know it's not like,
I think at the very least he's like another Cal Raleigh, essentially.
I mean, yeah, sure. He's probably a little bit better than that, more consistent at least.
123 WRC plus, but he's slashing 233, 315, 459. So a lot of slug, not a high average, below league average batting average and below league average on base.
Mm-hmm. Right. So if he's not slugging, 500, is he that much better than Ty France? I don't know, because France might get on base a little bit more. So,
and he's making 20 and a half this year,
right.
Which again, it's going to be prorated by the time that he's acquired.
Right, but even if it's less than half, even if you only owe him $8 million, right?
Yeah.
You still owe then Marte, it'll be roughly $8 million as well. So you're still looking at $16 million. France is still going to be owed about 3 by that point, and Garver is going to be owed about 5. So you're still adding $11 million in payroll. You're giving up.
You're adding 7 for next year over Garver.
Yeah. You're maybe not getting an upgrade at first base, as weird as that is to say, especially with the news that Ty France might be back, in a week. Right. So that's, completely changes the conversation as well. Plus you're also sacrificing your first base option next year, because France has an extra year of club control. Alonso is a free agent after this year. Now they might decide just to non-tender Ty France anyways, and they just go with Locklear at the start of next year. That's certainly a possibility. But I look at this: you're giving up 3 major league bats for 2 major league bats. You're also giving up a pretty good prospect. You're adding a lot of payroll. You're eating a lot of payroll from the Mets, which doesn't feel necessary. And yet you still have Mitch Haniger on your roster. You still have holes on your roster that you have to go fix. Yeah. So I look at this. This is just too messy. The money doesn't work.
If you replace Garver with Haniger, this would make more sense.
Yeah.
And the prospect compensation would also make more sense if they're taking on Haniger rather than Garver, in my mind.
Right, because Marte and Haniger are making roughly the same amount of money next year. They're same position ish. Yep. They same poor defensive outfield output. And so, to me, I don't get it from Seattle's standpoint. I don't understand the value in it for them, unless France comes back and he tanks for a couple weeks and all that. I don't know that Pete Alonso is actually a significant upgrade to Ty France overall, especially with what we've seen from France over the last month. So this is one of those ones where it's I wouldn't make this deal now, but would I make it on July 29th? I mean, maybe.
We need to see how Ty looks coming back from the injury. Can he stay hot?
Right. And I don't think the money is going to make this possible. I think, it's pretty creative. There's definitely some salary swapping going on. And I think the Mariners very well could try and find some salary swaps in their deals this summer. Absolutely. But this one, it just doesn't quite line up well enough.
Yeah.
So I think there are some interesting pieces here. I think there's some interesting conversation here, but it's just a little bit off. So I'm going to give it a 40.
Yeah. I'll go 40 on this as well. Yeah.
It's interesting.
All right. Last trade of the day comes from Doug. Ryan Helsley for Ty Pete, Emerson Hancock, Teddy McGraw.
I don't think that's going to get it done. Helsley's really, really good. I think he's got a year and a half left. It might be 2.5. I'm pretty sure it's a year and a half.
I'll look it up.
But yeah, he's really good, and he's exactly the type of arm the Mariners need. So if I can get him with Ty Pete as a headliner, I absolutely would do that in a heartbeat. Hank too, because we know that the Cardinals are desperate for young starting pitch. Okay. We know that the Cardinals are kind of desperate for young, controllable starting pitching. The problem is that Hancock's like a number 5 starter. I don't know if that's going to be enough, especially because other teams are obviously going to be bidding on Helsley as well. So to me, Ty Pete, Aiden Smith, Michael Arroyo, if one of those guys can be the headliner of a Helsley deal, I'm pretty much all in. I don't know if I don't trust Hancock to carry enough value, I should say, in the Cardinals' eyes for Ty Pete to be a good enough headliner in this deal. And Teddy McGraw is such a wild card because we don't know when he's going to pitch again. I like Teddy McGraw, but he's thrown 0 professional pitches because he's been hurt. And it's his second injury, right? His second elbow injury.
Yeah.
I get McGraw and Cole Phillips mixed up sometimes. So, yeah, it's interesting. I like Helsley. I think he's the type of arm the Mariners should go get. They should go get that high leverage bullpen arm. And if I can do it with, like I said, it being Aiden Smith or Ty Pete or Michael Arroyo plus, probably going to cost a little bit more in the secondary than Hancock. But if I can do that, I can headline one of those young guys, and then maybe two of them even. Like, you could talk me into Helsley for Pete and Arroyo.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you'd absolutely talk me into that. But the Cardinals probably want somebody who's closer to major league ready because that's just kind of their MO. So Cardinals not a great fit with Seattle, despite how much the media has tried to jam those two teams together in trade talks. They really don't fit all that well. But I do like Helsley. I think the deal you propose is a little bit optimistic on the Mariners side of things, but not completely without some merit and some thought process.
Yeah, like it probably gets the conversation going.
I think they engage with it. I don't think it's like, oh man, if you just do this. I think they're like, okay, well, we see what you're going for here. Let's talk about Farmello is probably, and they're like, how about instead we talk about Pete and Arroyo and Carlos Vargas or whatever.
Yeah.
We also don't know if they're going to be in the playoff race right now because once again, the National League is so mediocre that there are like two sellers, two true
Marlins,
sellers.
Rockies, Mets are like the only three teams that are just like out.
There's everybody else is in the race. They are within like 2 games.
Yeah.
So these National League trades are tough to grade until we get to about the All-Star break where we can start to be like, okay, well, this team lost 7 in a row, blah, blah, blah. They're out of it now. If that even happens, because the National League is having a giant mid-off.
Dude, it's so bad. Yeah. So the Phillies are 46-22.
Mm-hmm.
The Dodgers are 42-28. The Braves are 36-30. The Brewers are 40-28. And the Padres are 37-35. Those are the only teams that are over 500. Then like the Rockies are 24-44. The Marlins are 23-45. The Mets are 30-37. Then every other team is like 33-34, 33-35, 33-36, 32-36, 34-35. They're all within like 2 games of one another.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, it's wild. Like literally like 7 or 8 teams are all just like bundled up next to one another. It's crazy. Did we give a grade on the Helsley deal? Did I give a grade on the Helsley deal?
40.
I'll go 40 as well. Yeah. That's going to do it for our show. But before we get out of here, a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at @LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Ty Dan Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.